So we're going away from impact processes for a little bit here. With Valles Marineris, we've got this huge Grand Canyon stretching across the western hemisphere of Mars. And I want to talk a little bit about the processes that form Valles Marineris compared to the processes that form our Grand Canyon in Arizona, just to show you, the similarities and differences and the extent to which we can and can't use the process of analogy to interpret structures on other planets based on our experience here on Earth. Okay, so here's just some more perspective views of Valles Marineris. It is a complicated canyon system. There are some of these main scars, these main canyons. We've got some areas that have been eroded around the side. We've got this Candor Chasma side branch here in this part of the Valles Marineris. And again, on the Earth, this would stretch from California to New York, essentially, pretty much all the way across the United States. Canyon is kilometers and kilometers wide. I don't have it off the top of my head, or I'm blanking on it. But again, it's wider than it is deep. So if you're standing on the edge of the canyon, what you're going to see is this huge depressed area in between, and then abrupt canyon wall on the other side. Okay, so you might think one of our best analogies to Valles Marineris would be the Grand Canyon. So here's just a view of the Grand Canyon. Got this layer, this sedimentary and volcanic layered plateau that's been cut away to form the Grand Canyon. Now, what is the driving force in creating the Grand Canyon? Water. Water doing what? Water from where eroding what? What's at the bottom of the Grand Canyon? Colorado River. Okay. So Grand Canyon has a complicated history, and it gets more and more complicated the more studies there are. But the simple story is that the Grand Canyon, the Colorado Plateau had a couple of different river systems running across it. But the simplest way to put the story is that there's been a process of geological uplift. So this whole landmass has been lifted up by geological forces over time. The river has continued to cut down through that landmass layer after layer after layer over the last 6 million years or so. And as that channel gets cut, then the sides also are subject to erosion. So we've got the Colorado River, carving the main channel, and then we have both wind and water erosion eating away at the sides, making the canyon larger and wider as it gets deeper. So, is that a good analogy to help us understand Valles Marineris? I just went kind of through this. We've got the Grand Canyon, we've got the Colorado River cutting through, exposing all these sediments. Yeah. Valles Marineris is actually what's known as a rift valley. This is an example of tectonic activity. So essentially there has been a pulling apart of the sides of Valles Marineris, which has caused the center mass to subside. And then on top of that, there has been the wind erosion and perhaps water erosion early in history that has sculpted the Valles Marineris system following that rifting process. Our best analogy for Valles Marineris is actually the Rift Valley in East Africa, which is again an example of, in this case, continental plates being pulled apart, and as the continental plates pull apart, the spreading of the plates is really being driven by what's going on up here in the Afar region in Ethiopia. Essentially, the plates are moving apart from each other, and as they do so, the rift between has developed over time, with the center part of the Rift Valley subsiding as those surrounding plates have pulled apart. And this actually is an area where I have visited. We took a trip to Kenya one time, and from Nairobi itself is relatively high elevation, and you drive up higher and higher elevation to get to the edge of the Rift Valley, and then there's this just steep decline down into the interior of the Rift Valley. It's pretty impressive, but again, because the width is so far apart, it really doesn't look like a canyon. You know, it looks like this large depressed area in between these two more vertical canyon sides. Okay.